So, okay. So in the previous class, so I said you about instance variables. So how to access this instance variables? So I was talking about methods. So methods define inside the class. So methods defined inside the class perform two operations. One is setter operation and one more is getter operation. So an operation which modify the values of the object is called a setter operation. So the operation which doesn't modify the values of object is called getter operation. Which modifies the values is called setter. Which doesn't modify the values is called getter. So what is the meaning of this is? For example, okay, suppose assume that there is a class. Assume that there is a class called, if you take product only. So I want to represent a product details. I want to represent a product details. So there is a class called which one here? Product. So product is a class, and what product is having? So product is a class, and what product is having? If you see the product, so product is having the ID, product ID is there. Okay, self dot product ID, where I said none. So which are bind with product name, which is none, and self dot price, which is none again. But I try to declare this data is what here private. So when the data is a private, it is not accessible. When it is private, it is not accessible where outside the class. If it is a private, right, it's not accessible outside the class. I cannot access product ID. I cannot access product name. I cannot access what price. I cannot access these variables where outside the product. I can use this product ID, product name, and price only within the product class, but I cannot access this outside the product. Then how can I assign the values? So that is the same thing I said. If you are working with a list, when I said list, right? So if you are working with the list, so what will happen? You create a list. So how you create a list? By saying list one equal to list. So when you create a list, so the memory is allocated for list. Okay. So list object will be created. Which object is created here? List object is created. something. So there is a list object is created. So assume that list one object is created, but the data which is there inside this list is a private. I cannot access this data. If I want to add anything to this data, I try to use which one? Append. If I want to insert data, I'll try to use which one? Insert. But I cannot able to access this particular data. So data and functions. See, data and functions you're trying to encapsulate. This data and functions you are trying to encapsulate within one container, and that container is called as what here? Class. Within one container, so that container is called what here? Class. So it will create object of list by encapsulating this data and functions like append, insert. These are functions, right? In the same way, if I want to add data to the product, I'll try to use one method called set data. Okay, set data is a method, but set data is a which method? Object level. So a method which is having first argument as a self. A method which is having first argument as a self is called a object level method. So this is a constructor, and this is a method which receive the product ID. So the function arguments are called local variables, and this is price. So always object level variables bind with what? Self. So to the object level variable, assign local variable. To object level variable, assign local variable. To object level variable, assign local variable. So it means I create product by saying product 1 equal to product. So I want to represent one product details. Okay. So product is a user defined data type. So class is nothing but user defined data type. So when you create object, so what will happen on creation of object? Okay, what will happen on creation of object? Okay, so this is a product 1. Assume that this address is 1000. So whenever you create the object, your object is created by calling. Your object is created by calling which one? Constructor. So this constructor holds the address of which object? Product object. This constructor holds the address of which object? Product object. So what product is having? Product ID is there. Product name is there. Product ID, product name. So there is one more which is price. But what is initially this product ID here? None. What is initially product name here? Okay, product name is none again. And initially this product price is also what here? None. But this data which is there inside this object is what here? Private. Okay. So then is it main? Main is a member of product or outside the product or within the product here? Outside. This function is not there in the class. If this function is there in the class, so it is a member, so it can able to access this data. But this function is not there inside the class. It is where? Outside. So outside cannot access which one? Privates. Outside cannot access privates. Then how these privates are accessible? So these privates are accessible with the help of methods. Now, is it this method is a public or not? Yes. Suppose if this method is also private, if I put underscore before this, then can I able to manipulate this data? No, because everything in your product becomes what? Private, and you cannot access private things. So because of that, we have written one public method. So set data is a method. So where I give the product ID, I give the product name, and I try to give what here price. So product ID, product name, and price. So which method is called here? Set data method is called. And this set data method receive address of product one. It receive the product one and it receive the product ID. This is local variable. It will receive the product name. This is a local variable. It will receive the price. It is a local variable. And local variable values assigned to what? Object level variable. So self means it is referring to product object. Product ID is one and name is what here? Some mouse and the price is said here what here? 500. So it is like this. So product ID is one, product name is mouse, and the price is what here? 500. But can I access this data here? No, I cannot access because the data is what here? Private. Suppose I'll write as a p1 dot set data. I've given the product name of the product, and one more is what? Price. Set data, product ID, product name, and this is what here? Price. But can I able to access this? P1 dot. I want to access product name, product ID. So can I able to access product ID? No, because the product ID of product class is what? Private. Product ID of product class is what? Private. If you run this, so it is given product object as no attribute called product ID. But is it product is having product ID or not? Yes. Okay, product is having product ID, but you cannot access it. Okay, product is having product ID, but you cannot access it. Why? Because that product ID is what here? Private. That product ID is what here? Private. So if I run this, module, so it is given error. So how can I access this? For that, you write some getter methods. So I want to get the product ID. I'll say get product ID. See, method name can be anything, but it should be meaningful. Get self dot product ID. So I said get product name. So this will return the product name, self dot product name. So there is a method called get price. So get price is a method, and this returns self dot underscore underscore what is that? Price. So if I want to read the values from the product, I'll try to use which methods here? Getter methods. So print product one dot get product ID. So print product one dot get product name. Print product one dot get a price. Now you can see how many times I called man, 2 times. So you can see 101 is a product ID name and this is a price. So when the data is a private, you access it by using methods. So, but this can be setters or this can be what here? Getters. So the method which modify the value is called setter. A method which doesn't modify the value is called getters, right? So you have a setter methods and you also have what here? Getter methods, which modifies the values is called setters, and which doesn't modify the values is called what here? Getters. Okay. So this is a simple example. Now suppose, assume that question is like this. So write a program to read the scores of n players and display. I want to write a program to read the scores of n players and I want to display it. After reading the scores of n players, after reading the scores of n players, I want to display it. After reading the scores of n players, I want to display it. So to represent the details of player, I develop one data type called player. So player is a data type. What is the name of the data type? Player. So there is a data types. Class is a data type, but it is user defined. Okay. So I want to read the scores of n players, but each player is having two values. Each player is having how many values? Two values. What is the first value is each player is having two values. The first value is player name. What is the first one here? Player name. And second one is scores. First one is player name and second one is a score. So whenever I create a player, it reserves memory for how many variables? Two variables. One is for player name, the other one is for score. Okay, but I have to read the scores of how many players? N players. So this is for player name. This is for player name. And this is for what here? Score. So if you want to assign values, for each property, I create one variable. I mean one method. Set name is there. So this will assign value to the player name. So player name equal to player name. And set score is there. This will assign value to what? Score. So self dot self dot score equal to score. Then I write so get player name. Now this will return the player name. So return self dot player name. Then get player name and get score. So this will return self dot score. Okay. So one is you have a setters. You have a setters and you also have what here? Getters. This is for assigning the values and this is for reading the values. So setters are there and one more is what? Getters. So player one equal to player. Suppose I need to create how many players? N players. I read n equal to integer of input. Enter how many players? You want to read the details of how many players. Okay, enter the details of how many players. So here I read the value of n because I want to read the details of how many players? N players. I want to read the details of how many players? N players. So I want to read the details of n players. So I create a list. So what is my list is player list is empty because I'm creating players. So for in a range of n, and I have to read player name. So input player name, enter player name, and then I have to input what is your score. Input enter score. And these details I'm storing in which object? Player object. So player dot set player name. So I try to assign player name and p dot, okay, set score, and I try to assign what here? Score. So where I store this player name and score inside which object? Player object. And this player object I'm trying to append to the list. This player object assigned to the list. See here. So it means you are creating one list. This is a list. But in this list, are you adding integers, floats? No. Each time you are creating a player object, which is having player name and score. So you are reading the player name and you are reading the score, and this you are adding to what? List. You are creating a player object with a player name and score, and this you are adding to the list. You are reading the player name and score, and this you are adding to the list. Okay, but you are reading how many player objects? N players. Okay. Then I want to read all this details from list. Then for P in player list. Okay, now player list is a list. Now each time you are reading one player, and you are displaying it. So player dot. So I write getter methods. So what is the first one? Get player name. Get player name is one method. Player dot. So get price, get score is another method. You want to have a total score, then write total equal to 0 and total equal to total plus. Total equal to total plus player dot get score. Finally, you can display total. Okay. So that is what will happen in object-oriented programming. So everything you write in the form of what here? Objects. Okay, everything you represent it as a class. Class assign objects. Enter how many players? Two players. So this is a player name and this is a score. Okay, this is a player name and this is what here? Score. So this is a first player detail and this is a second player. And this you can call it as what here? Total. Okay. So, but what is the name of my class here? Player. So to assign values to this name and score, I write setter methods. To read the values of this player name and score, I write what here? Getter methods. Okay. So this is object level variable sign methods. So this is object level variable sign methods. So there is also, these are object level. Okay. There is also class level variable sign methods. So next what I'm talking about is class level variables. So object level variables, and there is also what? Class level variables. So your class level variables, class level variables. Okay, so you can say class level variables are the global variables. Class level variables are the global variables. Okay, which are global more than one object, which are global to more than one object. So to declare a variable, or property which is common to more than one object, it is declared. It is declared at what here? Class level. To declare a variable or property which is common to more than one object, it is declared at what level? Class level. To declare a variable or property which is common to more than one object, if you want to declare a variable which is common to more than one object, then you declare that variable at what? Class level. Then you declare that variable at what here? Class level. So that you can call it as class level variables. So every object, so every object is having its own variables. That is object level variables. So every object is having its own variables. That is called object level variables. So every object is having its own variables. So that is called object level variables. For example, there is a class A is there. Within class A, so always object level variables bind with self. This object level variables are accessible only in object level methods. So I create a variable X. I create another variable called Y. So what will happen when I create object 1, object 2, object 3? I try to create 3 objects. So whenever you create object, the object is created. Whenever you create object, the object is created by invoking constructor. So here 3 objects are there. Object 1, object 2, and object 3. So these objects are these objects are created by invoking constructor. Now this constructor holds the address of first object, and where you are saying self dot x equal to self means object 1 in this case. So because it is bind with object 1, x equal to 100 and y equal to what? 200. Then again it will call the constructor. Now this time self is holding the address of object 2 and allocates x equal to 100 and y equal to what? 200. Again it will call the constructor. This constructor hold the address of object 3. Here the value of x is 100. The value of y is 200, like that. So each object is having his own properties. But I want to create a property which is common to all these objects. Every object is having x and y. This is called object level variables. Object level variables. These are object level variables. Or the same thing you can call it as, okay, object level variables, or same thing you can call it as instance variables. These are also called which variables? Instance variables. But I want to declare a variable which is common to all these three objects. Then I declare a variable at which level? Class level. So this is declared. So this is not bind with. Z is not bind with what? Self. So this memory is allocated at which level? Class level. So the memory is allocated within the class context. So there is a memory allocated for this. So where the value of Z will be what? 300. So here object 1 is having xy, x and y. Object 2 is having x and y. Object 3 also having x and y. But there is one thing which is common for all these objects. So that is to the object 1, object 2, as well as to what? Object 3. So object 1 having x, y, z. Object 2 is having x, y, z. Object 3 is having x, y, z. Z is a common, global at class level. And this can be used by how many objects here? 3 objects. So if you want to declare a property which is common for more than one object, then this variable you declare at which level? Class level. So class level variables bind with class name. These variables can be accessible without creating what here? Object. But object level variables bind with object name. Object level variables bind with what here? Object name. But class level variables bind with class name. So if you want to declare a variable which is common to more than one object. So common to means, for example, you are representing student data. Okay, assume that you are representing whose data? Student data. So what student is having here? Student is having, assume that. So every student is having roll. Every student is having roll number. Every student is having name. So because this is, every student is having his own values. So when you create a student 1 equal to student and student 2 equal to student. So I try to create how many students here? 2 students. So there is a student 1. So there is a student 1 and there is a student 2. So whenever you create a student, the student is created by calling constructor. So there is a memory allocated for roll number and name. So the value of roll number is here none. The value of name is also what here? None. So roll number is none and name is also none. So call the constructor. And this constructor holds the address of student. So the value of roll number is none. The value of name is also what here? None. Okay, assume that this both the students belongs to one college. One college. All these students belongs to one college. So I'll say college name. So college name equal to some NIT. So college name is a which variable? Class level. So this is a class level. So there is a memory allocated for student. And what this student is having is college name. So what is the college name here? NIT. So student 1. So here student 1 is having roll number, name and college name. Student 2 is having roll number and name as well as what? College name. It means this both students are sharing the same college or not? Yes. But each student is having his own roll number and what? Name. So this variable is global. So this variable is global to how many objects here? 2 objects. To the student 1 as well as what? Student 2. Okay, this variable is global to both the objects like student 1 object as well as what? Student 2 objects, right? So you can access this class. You can access this class level variables directly with the class name. X equal to 100. So I can access class level variable with the class name. I can write print a dot x, because x is which variable? Class level. So x is which variable? Class level. So I can access directly. Because x is a class level variable, I can access this variable. But if I create object level variable, suppose if I create object level variable by saying self dot y equal to 200. So I cannot access, because self means it belongs to which one? Object. If I'm writing a dot y, so it gives what? Error. So what is it error here? Attribute error. Type object A. What is error here? Attribute error. Type object A has no attribute called which one? Y. Attribute error. Type object A has no attribute. There is no attribute called which one? Y. But Y is there. But Y is not class level. It is what here? Object level. So what I have to do? I have to create the object. So I create object 1 and object 2. Then I access it. Object 1 dot x, object 2 dot x. I said object 1 dot x. I said object 2 dot x. You can see. So we'll try to take object 1 dot y, object 2 dot y. So there will be two objects created. So for this is for object 1, and this is for what here? Object 2. Call the constructor and allocates memory for y, and the value of this y is a 200. And call the constructor, and this self hold the address of object 2, and here y is what? 200. But there is a memory allocated at which level? Class level. And that variable is what? X, whose value is 100. I can access this X with the class name, or I can access this X with what here? Object name also. So there is object 1 and there is object 2. Object 1 dot x, I can say object 2 dot x. But x is not belongs to object 1, object 2. It is belongs to what? Class. X is not belongs to object 1, object 2. Okay. X is belongs to the class, and it is accessed by how many objects here? 2 objects. So that is object 1, and one more is what? Object 2. So it is like that. So I can access class level variable with the object name also. I can access class level variable with object name also. But memory for this variable is allocated only once. So memory for this variable is allocated how many times? Only one time. For example, there is a class here So there is a class called customer is there. What is the name of the class here? Customer underscore underscore doc. Underscore underscore doc. Okay. So that will get the doc string. If you don't give the doc string, no problem. You can give the doc string by saying 3 single quote or double quotes. So customer class doc string. If you want to get this doc string, you can get the doc string by saying customer dot doc. So that gets the documentation. So there is a customer, and what customer is having is customer is having account number, customer name, and one more is a balance. Customer is having customer name, okay, and balance. Self dot account number equal to A. Self dot customer name equal to N, and self dot balance equal to what? B. So I try to reserve memory for 3 variables, that is to the account number, customer name, and one more is what? Balance. Correct. So the memory is allocated for this particular variables. So whenever I create a customer, like customer 1 equal to customer with account number, name of the customer, and one more is what? Balance. So I created which object here? Customer object with account number, customer name, and one more is what? Balance. So what will happen is it will create customer object. It will create customer object. Customer object is created. So customer 1 object is created by invoking constructor. This constructor hold the address of customer object, and this will receive the account number, customer name, and one more is what? Balance. So what will happen? So there is a memory reserved for account number, customer name, and balance. So what is the account number here is 101. Customer name is Suresh, and balance is some 50,000. So there is a memory reserved for account number, customer name, and one more is what? Balance. But I try to create one more customer. Assume that customer 2 equal to customer. This is 102, some ABC, and 40,000. So there is a customer 2 is created with again account number. So account number. So what is account number here? 102. Customer name is ABC, and balance is what? 40,000. But I want to create one property which is common. Like suppose each customer should have minimum balance. So your minimum balance is a common for customer 1 as well as what? Customer 2. So how many times you allocate memory here? Only one time. So you declare this minimum balance at class level. So minimum balance is what here? 5,000. So this is which variable? Class level variable. So this is a customer. So customer is having minimum balance. So minimum balance, every customer should maintain the minimum balance. But this minimum balance is the same for customer 1. This minimum balance is the same for what? Customer 2. So it means customer 1 is having account number, customer name, balance, as well as what? Minimum balance. Customer 2 is having account number, name, balance, as well as what? Minimum balance. So this is a global. Is a common minimum balance. Every customer will not have minimum balance. Minimum balance, which is a common for all the customers. Minimum balance is a common for all the customers. It is not belongs to one customer. It is belongs to all the customers. Okay, so and here customer is trying to do some operations like deposit, receive the amount, and deposit. Self dot balance equal to self dot balance plus amount. So customer is doing withdraw. It's trying to do deposit as well as what? Withdraw. And here trying to do some operations like if self dot balance so self dot balance minus transaction amount is, so there is a minimum balance. Minimum balance should be how much here? 5,000. If self dot balance is less than self dot balance minus amount is less than minimum balance. So customer dot minimum balance, class level variable, you access with the class name. Within the class, how you are accessing this class level variable with the class name. So self dot balance minus amount is less than minimum balance. Then you are trying to display the message saying that insufficient balance. Otherwise, you are trying to withdraw it, saying self dot balance equal to self dot balance minus amount. Self dot balance equal to self dot balance minus amount if balance is available. So print customer details. So where I'm using a format. So this is account number. Okay, self dot account number. So this is a customer name. So backslash n. So customer name. The next one is this is a balance. Then where I'm saying self dot underscore what here? Balance. So I created customer and I'm saying customer one dot, but before deposit, I just print the details of customer. Yeah, these are details of customer here. So once you run this, account number is 101, customer name is Suresh, and balance is some 50,000. So I try to deposit some 2,000. Okay, after deposit, I try to display print customer. So after deposit, it is what? 52,000. Okay. So I try to withdraw customer one dot withdraw some 4,000. After withdraw, again I print details of which one? Customer. I can see 52,000, 48,000 because withdraw 44,000. So this time I'm trying to withdraw some 46,000. But when I withdraw 46,000, you'll get insufficient balance. Balance is 48,000. You are withdrawing how much? 46. 48 minus 46 is 2,000, which is less than minimum balance. Okay, 2,000 is less than 5,000. So what is the message? Insufficient balance. But in this example, one thing is global. This is which variable now? Class level variables. This which variable now? Object level variable. Object level variable. This is also object level variable. And this is also object level variable. But this is which variable? Class level variable. So there is a class level variables and there is a class level methods also. Class level variables are there and class level methods also there. Okay, so there is a class level methods. Class level variables are there. There's a class level variables and there is also class level methods. So the methods defined inside class with first argument as what? CLS is called class level. The methods defined inside class with the first argument as what? CLS is called class level methods. So generally use class level methods to operate class level variables. Class level methods are used to operate which variables? Class level variables. To declare method as a class level, we use @class method decorator. We use class method decorator. By just writing the first argument as CLS, the method will not become class level. To change the method behavior to the class method, you have to use which decorator? Class method decorator. So generally class level methods are used to operate which variables? Class level. Object level methods are used to operate which variables? Object level, like that. So here the syntax is like this. So @class method. So @class method. So definition, method name or function name. So the first argument is CLS. And you can have the list of arguments. And you can have a list of arguments and you can include some statements. Like there is a statement 1 and statement 2. So, but you have to declare the first decorator as what here? Class method. So class method is bind with class name. Class method is bind with class name and it can be called. It can be called without creating. It can be called without creating what here? Object. You can call this method directly. You don't require to create any object because it's a class level method bind with class name. It's a class level method and it bind with what? Class name. You can call this without creating any object. Suppose in one class, there's a class C is there. So I write here class method. So there is a M1 method. So here I'm writing class level method. What I'm writing here? Class level method. This is a class level method. Oh, what is the first argument here? CLS. M2 is there. Now this is self. This is which method here? Object level method. So M1 is a class level. M2 is what here? Object level, because is having the first argument as what? Self. So M1 is having first argument as what? CLS and decorator. So I can call the class level method with the class name directly. A.M1, A.M1. I can call directly A.M1. Because M1 is which method? Class level method. I can call this M1 with class name. But if I say a dot M2, then it gives what here? Error. Because M2 is not a class level method. M2 is which method? Object level. It required what here? Self. Self means it required the reference of what? Object. So I need to create object here. Obj1 equal to A. Obj1 dot M2. So what will happen here? It will call M2 with the reference of what here? Object. So but class level method is called with what name? With the class name. So M1 method called with the reference of which one? Class. But object level method called with the reference of what here? Object. So it means object level data is accessed by using object level methods. Class level data is accessed by using which methods? Class level methods. So once you run this, now class level method, and second one is what? Object level method. So there is a class level method and there is an object level method, right? So that's the reason it is used to operate with data, class level data. It is used to operate with data, class level data. Class level, and this is what here? Object level. Okay, so we'll see otherwise more on this, like how to work with the class level methods. And even I'll tell you static methods. But tomorrow we'll see that. Okay, so today we'll stop here and tomorrow we'll continue. ఏంటిది చెప్తాను మర్చిపోయాను. తెలియదమ్మా, ఒకసారి చూస్తాను నేను, ఎవరైనా ఉంటే చెప్తాను మీకు. ఓకేనా? యా, నెక్స్ట్ విల్ సి PyCharm. I'll tell you. PyCharm, Jupyter, I'll tell you. Okay.